This episode has been brought to you from the DGMS Studios, home of Don't Get Me Started, Lethal and Mully Live and Surftown. Found at Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music and wherever you listen to your podcast. Welcome to Lethal and Mully Live, the podcast where we look into the wild, the wicked and the wonderful. I'm Lethal.
And I'm Mully. Together we're your guides through the chaotic universe of pop culture, current affairs, interviews and everything in between.
Each week we'll bring you the hottest topics, the craziest stories and the interesting guests. We have debates, laughter and maybe a few surprises along the way.
Wherever you are tuning in, from your car, your couch or wherever you find your podcast fix, we are here to entertain, inform and keep you company.
So grab your favourite snack, settle in and get ready for a wild ride. It's time to get lethal. And remember, stay curious and keep it real. Hello, good evening and welcome to another episode of Lethal and Mully Live. Today we have a very special guest that will be coming on very soon. But before that, I'd love to introduce my co-host. He is my trusty steed, Tonto, Robin to Batman, the Chewbacca to Han Solo, Samwise Gamgee to Frodo Baggins, and he's still sober and he's here. Keith, how are you, mate?
For once I'm speechless. I don't know which one of those to pick and have a go at. Nice to see you too.
Yeah.
You're looking well?
It's late night as well. It's very unusual for us to be on at 7 o'clock at night. You'll be in bed by now.
And you're looking shiny. Did you have a shower today? Huh?
I've never been called shiny.
I thought you guys only had them once a week.
Oh, mate. Well, we have a guest on today. His name's Dino Hayes. He is a legend in his own lifetime. Let's bring him on. Dino, are you there, mate?
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, we're good. We're enjoying ourselves. You sound like you're on top of things too.
Yeah, well, that intro was fantastic. I think I'll have to use that.
It's lovely, mate. It's really good. We can do it for you on the cheap if you want.
What, the standard one or the one where he insulted me?
Both of them, actually. Both of them. The one where he sold you, Keith, sounds about right.
We have Dino via phone from the UK. He's a very old mate, the nicest guy you could ever know. Dino studies and teaches JKD in 1996. Then 2 years later, he started to teach it in 1998 in Broadstairs, Kent. He also studied it a small time in Sydney, Australia. He holds a full instructorship and holds regular classes in Thanet, Kent. Dino has also trained in Canada and has been to various seminars with Dan Inosanto, who was only one of 3 that Bruce Lee certified to teach, in that he is preserving the legacy of Bruce Lee. Could you tell us, in your own words, how and when you got into JKD?
It actually started when I was at school, funny enough. That's when I got introduced to martial arts. So I went to, do you remember Holy Cross, Lee?
I do.
Right, so I was a bit of a tearaway at school, as you can imagine. And I had an English teacher named Mr. Spalding, okay? And I was always in detention with him.
I know him.
Always in detention with him. Do you?
Yeah, I think he used to say Hearson.
He might have done, yeah.
I think he did.
Yeah, he could have well done. So anyway, I had a lot of detentions with him, okay? He said to me, look, Dino, I'm fed up of wasting my time sitting in a class with you giving you lines. He said, you're going to have to now come to my karate class, which I teach in the gym after school. And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. And he said, well, you've got no choice. From there, I started going to karate classes and the rest was history on that part. I loved it. And funny enough, when I met you, Lee, I started really getting into martial arts. I don't know if you remember. I was going to a local club under Ron Jones, Sensei Ron Jones, put Cannon Road there in Ramsgate. Do you remember?
Oh, yes, I do.
So that was my start of my introduction to martial arts. So always the hero was Bruce Lee as a kid growing up, seeing the films. And so from there, I went into karate and kickboxing, doing competitions. And then I went off to Australia in 1990. So I left you, remember, because I was working with you. I got introduced to Wing Chun Kung Fu. Now, Wing Chun is what Bruce Lee originally started it. That's what his first martial art was, okay, before Jeet Kune Do. So I was training down in Chinatown in Sydney under a really influent instructor who trained alongside Bruce Lee. His name was Jim Fung. And that was great. So I did that for a few years, achieved my black sash. And then I came back to England in 95, found a Wing Chun club locally in Margate. And it was really bad. It was terrible. And I just was looking for something else. So with that, a friend of mine I was training with at the time, he said, Dean, I've seen this poster up at Canterbury College. Someone's teaching Jeet Kune Do concepts. I think you're joking. He said, no, honestly. I said, so me and him went up there. I remember it was a Tuesday night. Walked into class. I was looking for an instructor, and there's this guy with long hair, and I said, where's the instructor? He said, it's me, buddy. My name's Pete. He shook my hand. And this guy was like hair down to his shoulders. He was quite buff. He's 5 years younger than me. He shook my hand. He said, what's your background? And I said, karate, Wing Chun, and kickboxing, blah, blah, blah. He said, that's cool. He said, you know JKD? And I was like, well, not really. So that first class, he covered everything that took me to learn in 4 or 5 years in an hour. It was just, wow. It just blew me away. And that was it. So I was hooked. I went to as many of his classes as I was. So at the time, Pete Tachisikos is his name, was studying in Canterbury. So he's from Toronto in Canada. So he was here for 2 years. So I became really good friends with him. I was doing private sessions with him. We were socialising, training as much as I can. And then it came up to him leaving. They said, what are we going to do with the class? He said, you can take over, buddy. He said, you've got the influence. You're good. You're confident. I said, you're kidding me. He said, look, with Jeet Kune Do, when you teach, you start to learn more. With that, I took over the class. He went back to Canada. So I was teaching actually in Canterbury still, and then I started my own class in Broadstairs in St Peters. So that's how the journey started.
Dino, can I ask you this? You had your background in karate and kickboxing, and then this 1 hour's lesson that you had with Pete brought you into an entirely different dimension that you said had a great impression upon you. Can you tell us what it was?
Yeah, I can. The first thing which he teaches a beginner as such, I do the same now, is a drill we called headbutts, knees and elbows.
I was trying to think of that one.
Do you remember?
I remember.
As harsh as it sounds, you can know the background is very realistic. It's for the street as such. You learn it quick, and this is the idea. So he taught me this concept of headbutting, knee and elbowing, but it wasn't just what you think. It comes from a Filipino background, martial arts, Roman Reco wrestling. It's the holds and the way you could do it. Interpreted with that, he introduced me to what we call trapping, which we do in Wing Chun. Without going too technical, it was an introduction of going through trapping, which is disabling the arms to make an entry into headbutts, knees and elbows. The trapping concept took me nearly 3 or 4 years to learn with the Wing Chun in Sydney, but he just taught me so within an hour, blew all that out of the water. And that was it. I was like, wow, this is what I've been looking for. That's what bit me. It was the realism of it and how it changed from one martial art to another.
So how did it feel when Peter said to you, no, mate, you're good enough to take the class? And I remember that. I remember you doing that at St Peter's. Now, you run classes now, I think, is that in Hartsdown now?
Yes, so Margate.
Okay.
It's Hartsdown. It's Hartsdown Leisure Centre, but just off there's an old converted barn, which is where I teach from. It's my friend's place called Falcons Kickboxing. It's a brilliant place. I teach out there on a Wednesday night, so I had my class last night. We've used it. So do you remember Igor from Sydney?
Yep.
I had my gym with. So he came over a while ago because one of his guys was fighting in the UFC. So we had a fight camp set up there, and we was doing JKD and mixing everything up, getting him prepared for his fight. So, yeah, it's really good training environment, really good.
Now, how many students would you have, people come in one night?
That's an interesting question because I was talking to Anna, my wife, last night saying I have 12 students and it's a struggle to get round to them all, to fine-tune everything because with Jeet Kune Do, it's very technical. It's not like a kickboxing or karate class where everything's quite robotic and you can just set everyone up and shout orders. I have to go around everyone and correct them and tell them why we're doing this. Does that make sense?
My next question is, what's the background of your students like? Are they builders, bankers, or bouncers, or plumbers, painters, or plasterers?
You just said it. You just said every one of them. Massive variety. You've got ex-doormen. You've got managers. You've got a couple of IT guys in there. One works at where Rocco skateboards are. He's a skateboard instructor. Yeah, one with fixed windows. They're all walks of life.
Now, do they come with a certain philosophy like Bruce Lee had, or are they doing it for another reason?
They come in quite blind, to be honest. It's hard. There's a massive philosophy behind Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do.
I want to get onto that a bit later.
So my job as a JKD instructor is to portray that philosophy within the teaching of the techniques. Does that make sense? So that they come in, they've seen my social media and Instagram videos and discussions, and they're intrigued by that. So they come in, and then, again, most of them are hooked by the first class.
You follow Bruce Lee's philosophy. So
100%.
how would you incorporate that in your daily life or routine?
A question I ask my students is like, why do you do martial arts? Why? Doesn't mean it has to be Jeet Kune Do. It could be anything. It could be tennis. It could be cricket. Why do you do that? And the answers are all different. And sometimes it's not the answer I want. It's like, yeah, well, I do it for self-defense. I want to be able to look after myself. The answer I'm looking for is to better myself. And that's the simplest answer. Everything I do, or a human being should do, is to be better in yourself. So with Jee Kune Do philosophy and it gives you confidence, it gives you an aura, and it just makes you feel good about yourself. And that's along the line. Like I say, you can be doing tennis, you can be doing skateboarding. When you do act something like that, going to the gym, it makes you feel good. And that's it. And then that'll portray in your attitude and your personality.
Dino, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the philosophy behind JKD. As I understand it, of course, we know that it's a Chinese martial art. So looking at the philosophy behind JKD, I understand it to be coming out of the Chinese martial arts tradition.
Obviously, Bruce Lee was born in America, but then he was moved back to Hong Kong, and his dad was a famous actor. So that's how Bruce Lee got into acting, but also that's when he got into martial arts. He did Wing Chun, which is Kung Fu, which is the philosophy behind Wing Chun, is to be like water, is to flow. And this is where he used that philosophy a lot to emphasize JKD. It's using the opponent's strength against them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Would it be fair to say that JKD is a form of Kung Fu?
Definitely not.
How would it differ?
The difference, Jeet Kune Do concepts is the background. So Bruce Lee put JKD together for himself. He was very clever. He was way ahead of his time. So he developed JKD for his structure. Does that make sense? So for his size, his ability, his awareness, every technique he developed was for him and nobody else. So before Bruce Lee died, he made Daniel Santo a full instructor in JKD concepts. But he said to him, you teach this your way. So you adapt it so everybody else can learn to adapt it for themselves. And that is his philosophy behind it. JKD is not a fixed martial arts. It's a number of martial arts, 26 to 28 different martial arts, all blended together to flow into functional drill. So from all walks of life, all around the world, we take martial arts.
That's really interesting. Bruce said that he doesn't like forms or katas, calling them quite static, and saying that the highest state has no form. So I think that flows
correct.
On from what you're saying there, that it's an adaptation to the situation or the circumstance that the person might find themselves in. For example, Lee's built differently to me, so if he's finding somebody who's attacking him with a swinging right hand, it's up to Lee to work out the dynamics of that moment coming at him and how according to how he is physically, he's going to react, which if I'm in the same situation, I would react and defend myself a different way. Is that a good way of putting it?
Keith, you've done your homework, mate. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. No, the thing with forms and katas is his issue with that was they're fixed and they're robotic. They're great for a sport or to train within the dojo. When it comes to self-defense, it's unpredictable. So you never know how you're going to be attacked. You don't know when you're going to be attacked. And so that was when he branched out into JKD. Basically, there was too many fixed positions in martial arts.
Now, I get that. So I'm assuming that when you said to us earlier they come in blind and they want to learn, then they would have to be introduced to this concept that you're not going to be drilled into a particular form or kata that's going to get you up to your next level, your next coloured belt. You're going to be immersed in a philosophy and a different way of embracing this martial art. Now, I understand that, I think, to that point, but if you are still training them, you're not only training them in a philosophy and a way to adapt to the situation that they're confronting, how are you actually telling them to strike back in a punch or a quick, an elbow, or wouldn't there be some training in some techniques? So I guess you've answered that before when you said that Bruce brought in a little bit of everything from all the other different martial arts, and you'd learn any one of those things according to how you are built and your abilities. Would that be a fair summation again?
Yeah, 100%. So what I do, and I say I as a JKD instructor, because we're all different. So we blend different areas of combat into one functional drill. So, for instance, if I go from kicking range, which is your longest weapon, the kicking could come from box francis, penjak salat, any martial art. So I can make an entry by kicking to the shin. And then my second entry could be trapping, where I'll trap the arm and strike to the head. And then I could go to wrestling, reverse choke, take him down to the ground, and then sit on top of him and strike. So within those drills, I give the student the ability to add their own technique, if that makes sense. So if a drill fails, then you fall on another drill. So if a technique fails, you've got the ability to recognize that and then go to another technique. I'm really big on, when I give a drill, I say, don't just rely on what I've given you in the class. I want you to add your own techniques.
I get that. Bruce wrote in one of his books illustrating this, he said that if there's a big, overpowering man who's attacking a younger woman, she's really not at a disadvantage. She has 3 strike points that she can hit. She can hit the throat, the groin, or kick the shins. And then he says, woman, run like hell. And that's
exactly it.
That seems to be to adapting to the situation and great martial arts area. She hasn't got any great fancy locks or throws, but she's striking where she can at the moment. Maybe because she's small, she can only strike the groin, bends over in pain and like, girl, get out of there. That's, I think, is what he's talking about. What did you say earlier? Bend like water, or water doesn't?
Flow like water.
So who is the winner in that situation? The big, overpowering, muscly guy, or the younger woman, smaller woman? She beats him and she runs, she's safe.
Let's get down to realism, right? So the thing I say to my guys, my background, so I've competed in various competitions, kickboxing, MMA, BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I say to my guys, we're in here, we're learning how to look after ourselves, right? We're doing all these nasty drills, headbutting, eye gouging, elbowing. But the realism of it, we're not out on the street fighting every day, are we? We're not going into pubs, slapping girls' asses and blokes around the face to get into a fight. And so when you get a confrontation, the fear kicks in. Unless you're training day in, day out, it's like, I can't predict how you're going to react. So I give you the most basic drills to remember. Yeah, kick to the groin, eye gouge, punch to the throat. But if that big guy's going to get hold of you, then good luck. It's the fear factor. So body is made differently, react differently. And that's the beauty of JKD. We simplify things so you'll remember the brutal techniques to save your life as such. But in realism, we're not out there being horrible and hitting people and wanting to get into fights, are we?
I read that Bruce Lee developed JKD as an expression. It's been described as a hybrid martial art. Would you agree with that?
100%. It was an expression of himself. It's like, take my daughter, for instance, Safina. She expresses herself through her art. She's an amazing painter.
She certainly is.
And so that's her expressing her mind. So, and it's also release. So Bruce Lee found something that martial art, right? It's an art. It's an art form. So he expressed himself through his martial arts. You watch him on his films. He's so elegant. He's like a cat, isn't he? And as much as everything we see on his films are all flashy and high kicks, he wasn't about that. That behind closed doors, he was all the Jeet Kune Do, the realism. But he expressed himself through the films, through his books.
So as I understand what you're saying there, in JKD, each proponent is expressing him or herself their way.
That's it. It's like whatever hobbies you have, Lee and Keith, I don't know. You could be playing tiddlywinks for all I care, but that's an expression, right?
It's not happening, brother, I can tell you.
It's not going to happen, mate.
But you have to have an outlook in life. You have to have an outlet because life's not easy, right? It's a roller coaster. So going to the gym, going to JKD is you're stepping out of reality and just expressing yourself the best way possible.
Now, I've read this a number of times, and maybe you can help me with this. So you can best describe the tenet of JKD using no way as way and having no limitations as limitation. Can you explain that a little bit better?
Right. No way is way it's using any technique. That's his expression. It's like, it doesn't matter what you use, what works. Right. And then no limitation is just don't hold back. Don't limit yourself to, like, for instance, karate, like a block or gakuzuki, or don't limit yourself from a robotic martial art. It's like Jeet Kune Do. It is open, it's free, it's flowing. So in one nutshell is do not limit yourself. Use everything you've got in your tool bag.
The thing is, does Bruce Lee's core symbols or the stages of cultivation, which are vitality, which is the running to extreme, fluidity, the two halves of one whole, emptiness, which I love, the formless form, and then at the end, Jeet Kune Do. Does that still hold true today as it did back then? And do you think it will still hold true in the future?
Yeah, it does. Obviously, there's a massive following of Bruce Lee, of Jeet Kune Do concepts. There's a divide, which is a shame. When Bruce Lee was venturing into JKD, he called it Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. Now, this was the early stages of Jeet Kune Do, so he was just teaching elements of Wing Chun and some kickboxing and some locks. But it was still on a karate level, so you get graded in. And so after a while, he disbanded it and said, this isn't working because it's still fixed. So this is when he went into Jeet Kune Do concepts, where it's free and you flow, and it's not, but you teach something and then you just branch off on like that. It's like a tree which just flourishes.
That's really interesting to hear you expound your answers over those last couple of questions, Dino. It makes me wonder, do you think the basic philosophy or the philosophical underpinning of JKD is Taoism?
I hope that you're enjoying the podcasts and the content that we're bringing to you each week. I want to take a moment to invite you to support the show. Your contributions help us continue creating high-quality episodes, bringing in exciting guests and exploring the topics you love. Every bit helps, whether it's a small donation or signing up for our Patreon account. By supporting us, you're not just helping keeping the lights on, you're becoming part of our community and helping us grow. To show our appreciation, we offer exclusive perks, behind-the-scenes content, and so much more for our supporters. So if you love what we do and you want to see us thrive, please consider signing up at buzzsprout.com/don't get me started. Support the show. Thank you for being part of our journey, and let's keep the conversation going.
It is. Yeah, I mean, that comes under the bracket of philosophy. It's hard, I'm not trying to say. So it's difficult if I'm demonstrating a technique and then follow through to another technique. I'd have to explain the philosophy behind it and why Bruce would do it that way. And then again, it comes into the individual. What might work for me won't work for you.
Yeah, can I just jump in here to just follow this up a little bit? You just said that when Bruce was developing it, you said there's a big philosophy behind it, and there's become a divide where there's some people who are following the philosophy, and I'm assuming that they're not training, say, with an instructor like yourself. Now, as I understand Taoism or Taoism, it's when you fit in with the things that are around you, you accept them as they are, and you work in balance with them, in harmony with them, whereas that whole yin-yang concept where the white is embracing the black, and inside the black there's a dot of white, and inside the white there's a dot of black, because they're intertwined and they work together in harmony, although they're different. Now, that seems to fit perfectly with the philosophy of what you've been talking 100%. About here with JKD, whereas you follow the Chinese philosophy road backwards and you hit Confucianism and Buddhism, it's more, it's completely different to the fluidity and the fitting in with the what is there and the balance and harmony of everything. And is that a fair summation?
Mate, Keith, just stop showing off, mate. This homework you're doing is brilliant. It's you just answered the question yourself.
He does that a lot.
100%. Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Blimey.
Good on you.
It's like when you ask me how JKD affects me, my personal life as such. So it's just blending in what's around you. You accept what's in front of you, and you just crack on. I believe, and I say this to my students, just because I'm your instructor, we're still equal. We're very equal. It doesn't. No person is better than anybody else in that room. That makes sense. And that's how Bruce wanted to portray it. I'm just giving you ideas and philosophies to better yourself, but we are all equal.
Well, Dino, we're coming to the last sort of question now, and Keith sort of tripped me over. So my last question was,
right.
My last question was, do you think the techniques and philosophies of JKD can be applied not only in combat, but also as challenging life situations? And if so, can you give us an example of that?
So I'm dealing with an individual at the moment who's very, very He's got no confidence, okay, very shy, very head down, can't speak up for himself, and had a bit of bullying, etc. Had a bad time with women. And he's come to JKD, and I said, give it a go. I'm not going to take any money off you. That's not what it's about. With that, I just slowly watched him flourish. I see his head rise, his confidence, he's getting more outspoken. He's asking all the right questions, and he's just lifted. He's just lifted because he's expressing himself. He's focused on something that he really enjoys. And whether, again, because it's martial arts, he's hitting pads and he feels good about it. And that's the beauty of martial arts. It gives you confidence.
I'd really like to hear that story, Dino. That's brilliant. So you're actually providing a safe place for people to develop and become themselves, as well as training them in a martial art.
I don't portray it as I say, yes, I'm going to teach you how to look after yourself and defend your family and defend your friends. But, I teach how to use sticks from Filipino martial arts. I teach how to use knife. But I say to guys, we get any confrontation with a knife, you run like hell. Because no matter what I teach you, you're pretty much going to get hurt. So it's not, I said, you're coming in here to just let yourself go, learn how to express yourself, learn how to use your mind. You're going to have a good group of friends around you who will be there for you if you fall. And that's what you build in the JKD family. We call it a family. And everyone, it's open arms for everybody if they're willing to learn.
I've loved hearing a lot of what you've had to say here and just sensing that you're keeping it real. You're teaching them skills and they're giving them some self-esteem so that they can feel good about themselves and how they handle life. But I just want to mention in closing, this is my last comment, we do live in an age, or at a time rather, where there's almost a cult of eulogizing Bruce Lee because he was so outstanding. And also he hit fame through movies, etc., etc. But the question coming out of that is the 1-inch punch real?
Yes, 100% real. Now, if you look at Bruce Lee, the size of him, his build, I think, what did he weigh? I can't remember what he weighed. Probably around 9 stone, something like that, maybe less. He's only 5'4", 5'5". But the power that he could generate was phenomenal for a human being. It was just unreal. There's people think they can do the 1-inch punch, and sometimes there's trickery in it. I could do the 1-inch punch. The power Bruce Lee generated into those knuckles to the contact was phenomenal. He could launch a guy 10 to 12 feet, and that was real.
So it wasn't a myth.
It was a one-off. It was a one-off.
Yes,
no.
I think he was definitely a one-off.
Someone tapped him on the head when he was born and said, there you go, you're gifted.
Well, they didn't tap me on the head. They dropped me at birth.
It shows.
And I've had to live with that for decades. But it's coming good, Dino. You'll be pleased to know.
You're like a Swiss Army knife, Keith. You're like a Swiss Army knife, mate.
Now, Dino, we're coming to the end. Could you tell our listeners where you are, your Facebook or Instagram? If you could just pass that on, that would be great.
Okay, right. So obviously I'm based in the UK. I live in Birchington, Kent, and I teach Falcons kickboxing in Margate, Hartsdown. So if you want to tap me up, my Instagram is JKD Dino, and my Facebook is Jee Kune Do Fighting Concepts. And that's how you'll find me. And there's videos on both of them, Instagram and especially on the Facebook. I've got a collection of diary of videos which I teach and how I teach and my philosophies, etc. Well,
I encourage every listener to have a look at that. I've watched it many times, and my wife and I watch it and we go, there he is. What a dude. He is the dude, for sure.
You watched me grow up, dude.
I did, mate. And I miss you, mate. That's the thing. So this is why I wanted to get together. I 100%. Wanted to bring this forward because I believe in what you do. Now, you remember Hong Kong Phooey, don't you, Dino?
Mate, it's brilliant, yes.
I remember you used to sing it, and you go, Hong Kong Phooey's quicker than the human eye, or he's the number one super guy. Man, you used to crack me up when you used to do that. Just so good. But Dino, it's been a blast. Cool. We wish you continued success with all your ventures with JKD and your beautiful family. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Listen, thank you guys, Keith, Lee. It's been amazing talking to you both. And like I say, I really miss you. And hopefully we'll get my family out there.
You're always welcome, mate. There's always a room for you.
Yeah.
Dino, I remember.
I appreciate that. It's been great talking to you.
I remember when we had time together when you came to Australia. It was unforgettable. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of energy between the three of us. It's my wish and goal to get over there to the old country next year. And of course, I'll be heading south once I land in London. I'll come down and see you.
Listen, there's always a room for your mind, Keith. But I will say, I do remember that nightclub we went to in Noosa, and you was busting your moves with those sandals and those shorts on. I think you attempted the moonwalk, which was hilarious.
Oh, my
it was
God.
a great night.
I think we better cut this interview right
Good
there.
night. But anyway, Dino, thanks, mate. Let's give it up for Dino.
All right, guys,
All
you
right.
take care.
You too, mate. See ya.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Well, another amazing episode. Good on you, Dino. We appreciate your time. I know it's special to have you here, and we miss you, buddy. But if you'd like to be on the show, please send us an email at lethalthemoneylive@gmail.com. Be like Dino. Come on, have some fun. And in the meantime, please look after yourselves and be kind to one another.